This section of flight school is designed to get new pilots up and flying as quickly as possible. There are many options available at the start of the game, and a full explanation of all options can be found in the game manual. In this tutorial, you'll learn how to select your squadron, set the game difficulty options, and get started in the training campaign. From the main menu, choose the Campaign option by pressing C or by clicking the Campaign button. This is the campaign screen. When you play for the first time, the training campaign is automatically chosen. In this scenario, you fly a series of combat training missions. You can begin the campaign using the default options set by the computer, but you will probably want to change a few things. Let's start by changing the pilot name and the squadron. To do this, click the Squadron button or press the S key. The squadron roster allows you to assign yourself to an actual F-14 squadron. Select a squadron by clicking on it. In this example, a squadron has already been chosen. To enter a new pilot name, click Edit Pilot or press E. Your first name is entered on the top line, a call sign on the second line, and your last name on the third line, as shown in this example. You can enter a name for your radar intercept officer by clicking on the Edit RIO button, or you can allow the computer to assign a RIO to your plane. Click OK to return to the squadron roster. To set the difficulty level of the simulation, click the Difficulty button or press the D key. At the start of your first campaign, the options are automatically set to the easiest level, and the game is set to training mode. In training mode, your plane cannot be damaged, and you can continually resupply your fuel and weapons. A complete explanation of all difficulty options is found in the manual. For the first few missions, it is a good idea to leave the difficulty set to the easiest mode. This is also where you select and calibrate your joystick. Press the J key or click on the joystick button. In this example, we will demonstrate calibration for one joystick. Select the one joystick option by clicking the box beside it. Now click Recalibrate or press R. A calibration device appears. Follow the on-screen instructions to correctly calibrate the joystick as shown in this example. This ensures that the joystick will respond properly in the game. Now return to the difficulty screen by clicking Difficulty or pressing D. Now that the joystick has been calibrated and all options have been set, exit the difficulty screen by pressing C or clicking the Campaign button. You are now ready to begin. Press the B key or click the Begin button to start the campaign. This is the campaign status screen. It displays your theater of operation, the number of the upcoming mission, the names of the pilot and RIO, and the damage status of your carrier. Also shown is a brief summary of the upcoming mission. Click the Briefing button or press B to proceed to the mission briefing. The mission briefing screen explains the goals of your mission. In the Oceania training scenario, your missions consist of one-on-one duels against enemy aircraft. Clicking More cycles through the pages of the briefing. You are shown the weather and time of day and the names of other pilots who are flying patrols at the time of the mission. Click the More button. The briefing also displays a map of the mission area. Your carrier is the blue icon just off the coast. Click the Player button. The blue plane icon shows your starting position. Green triangles represent preset waypoints. The two red circles represent ranges from your plane. The inner circle shows a range of 100 nautical miles, and the outer circle represents a range of 200 nautical miles. Click the F-14s button. This shows the positions of other F-14s currently in the area. In one-on-one missions, such as this one, you do not have a wingman. In missions where you do have a wingman, a separate button can be clicked to show his position. Click the Other button. This shows the positions of any other Allied aircraft in the area. To see the type of plane, click on its icon. In this example, the other plane shown on the map is an E-2C Hawkeye. You can see the plane's current course by clicking on the plane's name. If no course is shown, as in this example, the plane is currently holding position in its current location. When you are finished viewing the briefing information, you can return to the campaign status screen, go to the arming screen and select your weapons, or allow the game to select your weapons for you and take off immediately. If you prefer, you have the option of choosing your weapons manually rather than accepting the weapons selected by the game. This section of Flight School shows you how. There are 6 weapon configurations or loadouts to choose from. The loadouts are listed in a menu in the upper left of the arming screen, with the currently selected weapons load highlighted in red. Click the Detail button or press D. This is a close-up view of the bottom of the F-14, showing the positioning of all of the weapons in the chosen loadout. Also shown is a small window which allows you to scroll through pictures of the missiles in the loadout. To exit the detailed view, click the OK button. Each loadout available is designed for a specific type of mission. No matter which loadout is chosen, the F-14 always carries a 20mm cannon with 675 rounds of ammunition. Click on a loadout option for details of that option. For information on the missiles carried by the F-14, click the Missile Information button, or click Menu to select a new topic. Fleet Defense Bravo consists of 6 AIM-54 Phoenix and 2 AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles. It is a loadout best suited for defense. With this loadout, the F-14 would remain near the carrier, firing its Phoenix missiles at long range. The combined weight of the Phoenix missiles makes the plane too slow to survive in a dogfight. Each loadout available is designed for a specific type of mission. No matter which loadout is chosen, the F-14 always carries a 20mm cannon with 675 rounds of ammunition. Click on a loadout option for details of that option. For information on the missiles carried by the F-14, click the Missile Information button, or click Menu to select a new topic. MiG-Cap Bravo consists of 6 AIM-7 Sparrow and 2 AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles. This loadout allows you to maintain a discrete distance while you use the medium-range Sparrows to attack. MiG-Cap Bravo is well suited for offensive missions. Fleet Defense Alpha consists of 4 AIM-54 Phoenix, 2 AIM-7 Sparrow, and 2 AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles. This is a defensive configuration which allows for significant long-range strikes without sacrificing close dogfighting weapons and maneuverability. Fleet Defense Charlie consists of 2 AIM-54 Phoenix, 1 AIM-7 Sparrow, and 4 AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles. In this defensive configuration, the Phoenix and Sparrow missiles can be used against more distant, non-maneuvering targets, while the Sidewinders are used in close combat against enemy fighters. MiG-Cap Charlie consists of 4 AIM-54 Phoenix and 4 AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles. This is an offensive loadout which combines long-range strike capability with speed. Once the Phoenix missiles have been fired, you still have a full load of short-range missiles, and your speed is dramatically increased. MiG-Cap Alpha consists of 4 AIM-7 Sparrow and 4 AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles. This is an ideal loadout for escort missions. The Sparrows allow medium-range capability, while the short-range Sidewinders allow you to dogfight with interceptors who get too close. The weapon loadouts available in Fleet Defender consist of combinations of the 3 air-to-air missiles listed here. Click on a missile for details of its capabilities. To exit, click the Close icon. The AIM-54 Phoenix is a long-range radar-guided missile with a maximum range of 110 nautical miles. If Phoenix missiles encounter jamming, they are programmed to home in on the source of the jamming. The F-14's radar allows up to 6 Phoenix missiles to track independent targets simultaneously. At $1 million apiece, this is a very expensive missile. F-14s rarely carry their full capacity of 6 of these weapons due to cost and weight considerations. The AIM-9 Sidewinder is a short-range, heat-seeking missile with a maximum range of 4.5 nautical miles. With some estimates showing the probability of hitting a target as low as 40%, it is a fairly inaccurate weapon. Nevertheless, it is currently in use by over 28 different nations. The AIM-7 Sparrow is a medium-range radar-guided missile with a maximum range of 24 nautical miles. It is designed to intercept low-flying aircraft against a backdrop of ground clutter. For the Sparrow to track a target, the F-14 must keep the target within its radar envelope. If the target is able to maneuver out of the radar envelope, the Sparrow will miss. Sparrows are often used to intercept sea-skimming anti-ship missiles. After selecting the game and arming options, you are ready to start your mission. While some missions begin with your plane airborne, most begin on the deck of the carrier. The carrier's 4 steam catapults provide much of the momentum needed during launch, but it takes more than just a catapult to get an 80,000-pound fighter into the air. To ensure that you have enough power, you should use your afterburners during launch. Switch to the full front cockpit view by pressing 2 on the numeric keypad. On the lower left side of the panel, you can see the engine RPM indicators. Press the A key to engage the afterburners. The RPM indicators now begin to climb toward full thrust. Press 8 on the keypad to return to the normal cockpit view. When the engines reach full power, the catapult automatically launches you from the deck. As soon as you are clear of the deck, press the G key to raise the landing gear. Since the carrier may be launching aircraft every 45 seconds, you need to be clear of the takeoff area as quickly as possible. Put the plane into a gentle climb until you reach an altitude of 2,000 feet. At this point, you can turn off the afterburners and proceed with your mission. Once you have cleared the takeoff area and leveled off, engage the autopilot by pressing P. This leaves you free to plan your mission and search for targets. While in flight, you can survey the area by checking your in-flight map. Press the / key. This is a map of the mission area. Your carrier is the blue icon just off the coast. Click the player button or press P. This is the position of your plane. The 2 circles represent distance from your plane. The inner circle shows a range of 100 nautical miles, and the outer circle shows a range of 200 nautical miles. The green triangles are preset waypoints for the mission. Click the Resume button or press R to return to the cockpit. The direction of the next waypoint is also shown on the heads-up display, or HUD. When the waypoint mark is centered on the compass, you are following the correct course to the waypoint. Once you are on the right course, you are ready to search for targets. Switch to the rear seat cockpit by pressing the apostrophe key. To search for targets, you need to check your radar. For the purposes of this tutorial, radar is set to standard, which is the least difficult mode. In the top center of the rear seat cockpit is the Detailed Data Display, or DDD. This shows a radar image of the area in a 130-degree arc in front of you. Your plane is at the center of the DDD's bottom line. In standard mode, the range covered by the DDD is always 200 nautical miles, no matter what the range indicator is set for. In a one-on-one combat simulation, the mission starts in the air with the enemy positioned almost directly ahead of you. The enemy plane appears immediately on the DDD as a green blip and is automatically locked onto by your radar intercept officer. When a target is locked, the sweeping radar bar stops on the blip and the word track appears at the bottom of the DDD. Blips which are closer to the bottom line are closer to your plane. Switch to the lower half of the rear cockpit by pressing the 2 key on the numeric keypad. The circular screen here is the Tactical Information Display, or TID. In standard mode, enemy planes are red and friendly planes are blue. A white square around a plane indicates that it has been radar locked. There are quite a number of things a pilot can do to avoid being shot out of the sky. Some of them involve nothing more than a little forethought and planning. These are known as passive defenses. Other defensive measures demand action on the part of the pilot. These are known as active defenses. Click an option button to learn about defensive tactics. Passive defense measures are mostly common-sense precautions which can be taken by a pilot with little or no effort. These make the pilot less vulnerable to enemy missiles by avoiding detection. When traveling to and from the engagement area, use a stealthy approach. Keep the plane at a low altitude and a low speed. This makes you much harder to detect. In addition, try to remain aware of what is going on around you. Keep an eye on your radar systems and plot your course well in advance to avoid flying over potential trouble areas. Preparing for problems in advance is much more effective than simply reacting to problems after it may already be too late. Click an option button to learn about defensive tactics. When all options are set to the easiest level, your radar intercept officer controls the launch of electronic countermeasures automatically. However, you still have the option to launch chaff and flares manually. The F-14 is equipped with two types of missile decoys: chaff to decoy radar-guided missiles, and flares to fool heat seekers. Chaff is stored within dispensers inside the plane. Each time you deploy chaff, a cloud of radar-reflecting metal strips is released into the air. This is designed to fool the enemy radar by cluttering it with hundreds of false images. You have a total of 18 bundles of chaff during each mission. Press the C key now to deploy chaff. Usually, chaff is deployed as soon as a launch is detected. This has the possibility of breaking radar lock. If this doesn't work, wait until the missile is 3 to 5 kilometers away. Begin evasive maneuvers and deploy more chaff. Flares are designed as countermeasures against heat-seeking missiles. They are small but powerful heat sources which burn for 5 to 10 seconds after release. The heat source produced by the flare hopefully fools the heat seeker into following it instead of you. You have a total of 12 flares available during each mission. Press the F key now to launch a flare. Passive defense measures are mostly common-sense precautions which can be taken by a pilot with little or no effort. These make the pilot less vulnerable to enemy missiles by avoiding detection. When traveling to and from the engagement area, use a stealthy approach. Keep the plane at a low altitude and a low speed. This makes you much harder to detect. In addition, try to remain aware of what is going on around you. Keep an eye on your radar systems and plot your course well in advance to avoid flying over potential trouble areas. Preparing for problems in advance is much more effective than simply reacting to problems after it may already be too late. Heat-seeking missiles are difficult to deal with because they don't appear on the twos. When a heat seeker is launched, you receive this audio warning. The range of most heat seekers is limited, so the missile is most likely very close when you receive the warning. Begin launching flares as soon as you get the warning. It is best to combine the launch of a flare with evasive maneuvers to achieve the best chance of evading the missile. Once the flare burns out, the missile may reacquire you if you haven't maneuvered out of its detection path. Click an Option button to learn about defensive tactics. The TOOS is one of the most important defensive systems in the F-14. It is located in the front seat cockpit in the lower right. Your plane's position is at the exact center. The top of the display always represents 12 o'clock directly in front of you, and the bottom always represents 6 o'clock directly behind you. The maximum display range of the TOOS is 40 nautical miles, and each circle represents an increment of 10 nautical miles. When ground-based radar is searching for you, this audio warning is heard in the cockpit and the TOOS flashes in the direction of the radar emission. When you are being tracked by ground-based radar, a square icon appears on the TOOS display showing the radar's position. Inside the square icon is a number indicating the type of radar in use. The list of radar types is found in the manual on page 111. When a ground radar locks onto you and launches a missile, a smaller square representing the missile appears over the large one. Enemy aircraft radars appear on the TOOS only after they have locked onto your plane. Aircraft radar sources appear as a diamond icon. The number in the icon indicates the type of radar in use. The list of radar types and the aircraft that use them is on page 111 of the manual. Aircraft icons don't flash when a missile is launched, but it is safe to assume that a missile has been launched soon after the enemy locks on. Air-launched radar-guided missiles are shown on the TOOS as small, unnumbered squares. They appear as soon as they are launched. Because heat-seeking missiles don't emit a radar signature, they do not appear on the TOOS. Click an Option button to learn about defensive tactics. Radar jamming is a function of the Tactical Early Warning System, or TOOS. It is activated by pressing the J key. Once active, the jammer automatically counters radar emissions directed at your plane. Press the J key now to activate the jammer. Jamming can affect radar in two ways. Passive jamming overloads the radar signal with white noise. This hides the aircraft's radar signature amidst a background of static. Active jamming returns a false radar signal which shows the plane to be in a position other than where it really is. Before enemy radar locks on, the TOOS jammer uses passive jamming. Once the radar is tracking your plane, active jamming is used. The major drawback of the jammer is that it creates a lot of noise. Even though your precise position cannot be easily determined, the jammer is like a beacon which clearly shows your general location. Continuously using the jammer simply broadcasts your position to the enemy, so use it sparingly. Click an Option button to learn about defensive tactics. The same maneuvers shown in the Basic Fighter Maneuvers tutorial can be applied to evading missiles. However, missiles are difficult to avoid since they are faster and can withstand higher G-forces. Due to the high speeds involved, you will most likely only have time to make one maneuver. The best way to defeat an incoming missile's tracking is to keep it at a 90-degree angle to your flight path. When you are being tracked by radar-guided missiles, watch the TOOS. Turn the F-14 so that the missiles are approaching directly from the right or left. Wait until the missile is within 5 nautical miles and begin your evasive maneuvers. Click an Option button to learn about defensive tactics. Unless you start the mission with the target already radar locked, the first thing you need to do after finding a target is to lock onto it with your radar. When a target blip appears, move the mouse cursor onto the detailed data display. When you do, the cursor changes from an arrow to a pair of horizontal lines. Center the target blip between the cursor lines and click. If the blip is an enemy plane and it is in range, the radar locks on the target and automatically switches to track mode. The vertical bar, which was moving across the entire field in search mode, is now centered on the target. Switch to the lower half of the rear cockpit by pressing the 2 key on the numeric keypad. On the tactical information display, the blue plane at the center of the display is you. The enemy plane appears in red. When the enemy plane has a white box around it, you have a radar lock on that plane. Switch back to the front cockpit by pressing the apostrophe key. Once a radar lock has been established, you are ready to try for a weapons lock. Before you can understand weapons targeting, you must first understand the heads-up display. The heads-up display, or HUD, shows basic flight and combat information, allowing you to fly the plane and fight without looking down at your instruments. In navigation mode, the HUD shows your heading and whether you are climbing, diving, or banking. In combat mode, more information is shown in the HUD. At the bottom of the display is the weapon priority indicator, which shows which weapon system is active. In this example, the Phoenix missiles have been chosen. 2 vertical scales appear on the sides of the HUD in combat mode. On the left is the closure scale. The pointer shows the rate of closure between you and the target. The scale ranges from -200 knots at the bottom to +1,000 knots at the top. A positive closure rate shows that the target is getting closer to you, while a negative value means it is getting farther away. On the right side is the range scale. The pointer indicates the distance to the designated target. If you are closer than the weapon's minimum range, an X appears in the center of the HUD to warn you that you are too close to fire. The moving green diamond is the target diamond. It remains centered on the enemy plane, following its movements. When the enemy is in firing range, the target diamond begins to flash, showing that it is time. For details on the targeting for each weapon, click the appropriate button. To choose the Phoenix missile as your active weapon, press the 4 key. PH appears in the weapon priority indicator to show that the Phoenix missiles are active. The number on the weapon priority indicator shows the number of missiles remaining. The range scale shows the minimum and maximum range for the Phoenix missile, which is 2 to 110 nautical miles. When the target falls within this range, the target diamond flashes to show. Press the spacebar now to fire a Phoenix missile. For details on the targeting for each weapon, click the appropriate button. To choose the Sparrow missile as your active weapon, press the 3 key. SP appears in the weapon priority indicator to show that the Sparrow missiles are active. The number on the weapon priority indicator shows the number of missiles remaining. The range scale shows the minimum and maximum range for the Sparrow missile, which is 2 to 24 nautical miles. When the target falls within this range, the target diamond flashes to show that it is time to fire. Press the spacebar now to fire a Sparrow missile. For details on the targeting for each weapon, click the appropriate button. To choose the Sidewinder missile as your active weapon, press the 2 key. SW appears in the weapon priority indicator to show that the Sidewinder missiles are active. The number on the weapon priority indicator shows the number of missiles remaining. Sidewinders are heat-seeking missiles which use internal systems to acquire targets rather than the plane's radar. While the Sidewinder is seeking a target, this tone is heard. The moving indicator in the HUD is the seeker indicator. The range scale shows the minimum and maximum range for the Sidewinder missile, which is 0.5 to 4.5 nautical miles. When the target falls within this range and the missile acquires the target, the seeker indicator joins with the target diamond and both flash to show that it is time to fire. At the same time, this tone is heard. Press the spacebar now to fire a Sidewinder missile. For details on the targeting for each weapon, click the appropriate button. When you run out of missiles during combat or you are just too close to use them, you must rely on less modern air combat tactics. The F-14 is equipped with a single 20mm Vulcan gun, which is mounted under the cockpit. This Gatling-type gun is able to fire up to 100 shells per second. To choose the cannon as your active weapon, press the 1 key. G appears in the weapon priority indicator to show that the gun is active. The number on the weapon priority indicator shows the number of rounds remaining. Unlike missile combat, the range scale for the cannon doesn't show minimum and maximum ranges. This weapon has no minimum range. The maximum effective range is 0.6 kilometers, but the gun can be fired at targets as much as 3 kilometers away. The floating gun sight should be centered on the target in order to score a hit. The best attack position when using guns is from directly behind the enemy. This is known as being on his 6 or in the slot position. In this position, the target is in your line of fire for the longest possible time. In addition, you are out of the enemy's firing arc. From any other firing position, both you and the target are moving relative to each other, giving you much less time to score effective hits. Remember to fire in short bursts. At the maximum rate of fire, you can expend all of your ammunition in less than 7 seconds. To fire the gun, press the Enter key. For details on the targeting for each weapon, click the appropriate button. There are a number of basic fighter maneuvers, or BFMs, which can be very useful in pursuing the enemy and in evading pursuing planes and missiles. Click on a maneuver to see it demonstrated. The brake turn is merely an abrupt change of course made in response to an attack. It is made with wings inclined 90 degrees. In other words, the plane is tilted on its side and the stick is pulled back, quickly changing your heading. A side effect is that you tend to quickly lose speed. This maneuver exposes you to strong G-forces and will cause you to black out if sustained too long. The early turn is a tricky maneuver, which requires precise timing. It is used to get behind your opponent from a head-to-head position. To perform this maneuver, you need to anticipate your opponent's future position in relation to your own. The trick is to turn early enough so that the enemy plane passes you and cannot begin turning until your turn is nearly complete. This places you on the enemy's tail in a superior fighting position. The split S is a maneuver to reverse your direction of flight, which combines a half roll and a dive. It is an offensive maneuver designed to increase airspeed for a quick attack. This maneuver causes you to lose a great deal of altitude, so make sure that you have at least 5,000 feet to play with. Begin the maneuver by doing a half roll so that the plane is upside down. Then pull back on the stick. As you begin to dive, press the minus key to reduce your airspeed so that you don't lose too much altitude. When you are level again, you will have turned 180 degrees with your speed drastically increased. The scissors maneuver is really a series of turns and counter-turns where you and the enemy are attempting to drop in behind one another. You must attempt to get the enemy plane to fly past you by turning and dropping speed little by little, by toggling the B key to turn your speed brake on and off. The battle alternates back and forth until one plane takes the lead or drops out. If such a battle lasts for an extended period of time, the repeated turn and brake maneuvers could easily lead to a stall situation. The Immelmann turn is the exact inverse of the split S. It reverses your direction of flight by combining a climbing half loop and a half roll. Start this maneuver from level flight or a slight dive. Pull back on the stick and continue your loop until you are flying inverted, facing in the opposite direction. Since you lose a great deal of airspeed, it is wise to add thrust by pressing the A key to engage the afterburners. Once the loop is complete, a simple half roll completes the maneuver. The loop is a combination of a split S and an Immelmann. It is designed to avoid a pursuing enemy and put you in his 6 o'clock position at the same time. Make sure you have plenty of power when you start, because you will lose a great deal of airspeed in the first half of this maneuver. Pull back on the stick as you did in the Immelmann turn. This time, when you reach the top of the loop, Continue to pull back on the stick, initiating a dive. When completed, you'll be facing the same direction as when you started, and hopefully you'll be on the pursuer's tail. Although this tactic may be useful against enemy planes, a pursuing missile with its tighter turning radius is seldom shaken with this maneuver. By pressing the function keys, a number of alternate views are accessible. These views are useful both for gameplay and just to take a tour of the game graphics. Press a function key to change camera views. Pressing the F1 key returns you to the inside of the cockpit. This is the full front view. It shows a view from the cockpit without showing the instrumentation. This view is useful when tracking an enemy plane visually, giving you a panoramic view of the sky in front of you without the cockpit instrumentation blocking your way. You can still control the plane from this view, but only your heading, altitude, and airspeed are displayed. This is the LSO view. It allows you to see through the eyes of the landing signals officer on the deck of your carrier. Unless your plane is very close, the LSO won't be able to see it. This view always faces the direction of your plane, whether it's in visual range or not. This is the Air Boss view. It gives you a view from the carrier's tower. As with the LSO view, this view always faces your plane, but you won't be able to see the plane unless it's within visual range of the carrier. This is the remote view. This camera position defaults to a close-up view from behind your plane. This view can be panned, tilted, and zoomed to change the camera position and distance from the plane. To pan and tilt, use the 2, 4, 6, and 8 keys on the numeric keypad. To zoom in, use the Z key, and to zoom out, use the X key. This is the full-motion pilot view. This view allows you to pan and tilt the camera using the 2, 4, 6, and 8 keys on the numeric keypad. By doing so, you can see in any direction that a pilot could actually turn his head. To return to the forward view, press 5 on the keypad. This is the missile view. This view defaults to a view directly behind and slightly below a missile as it flies toward its target. This view can be panned and tilted using the 2, 4, 6, and 8 keys on the numeric keypad and zoomed in and out using the Z and X keys. If there is no missile in flight, this view shows your plane and works similarly to the remote view. This is known as the padlock view. It acts much like the full-motion pilot view, except that it remains centered on the targeted plane, following it as it moves within the pilot's field of view. This is the tactical view. The default view looks past your aircraft at your target. The view tracks to follow the target as it moves. This view can be tilted and panned using the 2, 4, 6, and 8 keys on the keypad and zoomed in and out using the X and Z keys. This is the reverse tactical view. It is the opposite of the tactical view, positioning the camera so that it looks past an enemy plane and toward you, automatically tracking your plane as you move. It can be tilted and panned using the 2, 4, 6, and 8 keys on the keypad and zoomed in and out using the X and Z keys. By pressing F10 continuously, you can cycle through all Allied and enemy air and sea targets. When the mission is complete, it's time to go back to the carrier. In real life, you must backtrack along your original course and fly back. But in Fleet Defender, there is a way around having to fly the return trip. When the mission is complete, it's time to go back to the carrier. In real life, you must backtrack along your original course and fly back. But in Fleet Defender, there is a way around having to fly the return trip. When you want to go back to the carrier, press the E key. When landing, you first approach the carrier from the aft end. The E key transports you here when you press it once. Pressing E repeatedly advances you along the landing approach in increments. If you press it a total of 7 times, the entire landing is handled automatically. This shows the approach pattern for a fair-weather day approach with the carrier oriented along a north-south axis. Click one of the plane icons to learn about a section of the landing approach. In the upwind leg, reduce altitude until you are at 800 feet. Press the minus key until your speed is reduced to about 350 knots, and press the H key to lower the arrestor hook. Since you are flying parallel to the carrier and approaching from behind, your heading is now 360 degrees, or due north. During this first leg, you will fly past the carrier with the carrier on your left. Once you are about a mile past the carrier, you need to turn into the crosswind leg. This shows the approach pattern for a fair-weather day approach with the carrier oriented along a north-south axis. Bank the plane to the left at a bank angle of 45 to 60 degrees. When your HUD compass shows that your heading is 270 degrees, level off. Extend your speed brake briefly by pressing the B key. When your speed is just below 300 knots, press the B key again to close the speed brake. Gradually descend to 600 feet. Continue along this heading until you are about 1 mile past the carrier. You must now turn left for the downwind leg. This shows the approach pattern for a fair-weather day approach with the carrier oriented along a north-south axis. From the crosswind leg, turn left, keeping your bank angle between 45 and 60 degrees. When your HUD compass shows a heading of 180 degrees, level off. You are now in the downwind leg. As soon as you level off, lower the landing gear by pressing the G key. The drag from the wheels decreases your speed, so you may need to press the plus key to keep up speed. Maintain a speed of at least 225 knots and descend to 500 feet. Maintain this heading until you are about 3/4 of a mile past the rear of the carrier. This shows the approach pattern for a fair-weather day approach with the carrier oriented along a north-south axis. Once you are 3/4 of a mile past the carrier on the downwind leg, turn left at a bank angle of 45 to 60 degrees. You are entering the base leg of the landing approach. When the HUD compass shows a heading of 90 degrees, level off. The base leg is the last chance you'll have to make any corrections before your final approach. Continue to descend until you're at about 400 feet and bleed off speed until you're at about 160 knots. Be careful not to bleed off too much power or make any steep climbs, or you may stall the plane. Wait until the carrier is directly to the left and begin to turn left into the final approach. This shows the approach pattern for a fair-weather day approach with the carrier oriented along a north-south axis. This is the final approach. From the base leg, turn left until the carrier is directly in front of you. There is very little time for more than small adjustments to your course at this point. End your left turn when the carrier is directly in front of you, and look at the large green screen in the center of the panel. This is the Vertical Display Indicator, or VDI. Much of the information displayed here is the same as the HUD, but during the landing approach, the VDI also displays 2 lines which define the optimum landing glide slope. When you are at 3/4 of a mile, you should be flying no faster than 145 knots and at an altitude of 360 feet. When you are on the proper glide slope, you will receive a signal from the carrier to call the ball.
Call the ball.
The ball is a light array designed to communicate visual instructions to incoming pilots. The ball is located on the left side of the carrier in relation to your approach. For more than a mile away, it cannot be seen. It can be seen as a small colored dot to the left of the runway from 3/4 miles or less. When you are asked to call the ball, the landing signal officer is asking if you can see the ball. When it is visible, hold down the Alt key and press B to call the ball. The lights on the ball give you information on your approach. If the ball is green, you are on the proper 3-degree glide slope. When the ball is red, you are too low and should pull up slightly. When the ball is yellow, you are too high and should nose down slightly. In addition to the ball, there is a series of lights on the left HUD brace which gives landing approach information. This is called the approach indexer. If the lamp is green, you are at the proper speed. If the lamp is red, you are flying too slow. If the lamp is yellow, you are flying too fast. Even at the relatively low speed of 145 knots, you have only seconds to check all of this information and adjust your glide slope and speed. There is very little time for more than small adjustments to your course at this point. End your left turn when the carrier is directly in front of you, and look at the large green screen in the center of the panel. This is the Vertical Display Indicator, or VDI. Much of the information displayed here is the same as the HUD, but during the landing approach, the VDI also displays two lines which define the optimum landing glide slope. Visually line up your approach with the vertical stripe painted on the stern of the carrier. This line corresponds with the center line of the carrier's runway. When making course adjustments this close to the carrier, never bank the plane. Instead, adjust your course with the rudder controls by pressing the comma and period keys. From this distance, just seconds from landing, you can see a series of 4 black lines running across the runway. These are the arrestor cables, one of which will be caught by your plane's hook. This brings you to a sudden but safe stop. If you are on the proper glide slope and approaching at the proper speed, you will catch the third wire. If you catch wire 1 or 2, you are coming in too low. If you catch wire 4, you are coming in too high. If you miss all 4 wires, you need to immediately engage your afterburners and pull up. Then you must start your approach again. Ideally, when you land, you should touch down main wheels first. Your speed should be 135 knots. Your wing should be level, and the hook should catch the number 3 wire. The landing signals officer, or LSO, rates each landing on a scale of 1 to 4, with 4 being the best. Landings are judged much more harshly on the more difficult modes of play. This shows the approach pattern for a fair-weather day approach with a carrier oriented along a north-south axis. Welcome to the cockpit tour. This section is designed to replicate all functional aspects of the F-14's gauges, controls, and systems in standard mode. Most key presses referred to in this voiceover function as in the game. To begin your cockpit tour, click on any cockpit indicator. You can stop a voiceover at any time by pressing the Escape key. The Heads-Up display, or HUD, shows basic flight and combat information, so you are not required to look down at your instruments in the middle of a dogfight. The HUD is used in navigation and combat modes. You can learn more about the HUD in navigation mode by clicking on the magnetic heading indicator, the waypoint caret, or the pitch ladder. To learn about the HUD in combat mode, press the backspace key at any time. The magnetic heading indicator is a digital compass. The position of the bore sight reference mark on the magnetic heading indicator shows your compass heading in degrees. The waypoint caret displays the direction of the waypoint that has been selected. To travel towards the waypoint, maneuver so the waypoint caret is lined up with the bore sight reference mark. The orientation of the aircraft reticle on the pitch ladder indicates your aircraft's pitch relative to the horizon. If the aircraft reticle is positioned over solid pitch lines, it means that you are pointed above the horizon. If the aircraft reticle is positioned over dashed pitch lines, it means that you are pointed below the horizon. An aircraft reticle that is lined up with the horizon indicates that you are flying straight and level. The velocity vector indicator graphically illustrates the direction of your aircraft's flight path. A flight path is defined by where the aircraft is going, not where it's pointed. A plane may be pointed straight up but be falling towards the ground. In this case, the flight path vector points towards the ground, while the direction the aircraft is pointing is straight up. The left engine compressor stall lamp is lit if your port-side engine has suffered a compressor stall due to random mechanical failure. The right engine compressor stall lamp is lit if your starboard engine has suffered a compressor stall due to random mechanical failure. The radar warning lamps are lit when you have been locked up by an enemy radar. The SAM light is lit when you have been locked up by a surface-to-air missile site. The AAA light is illuminated when an anti-aircraft artillery site is tracking you. The AI light is lit when you have been locked up by an airborne interceptor. The approach indexer functions when your gear is down and helps to adjust your angle of attack during landing approaches. A green light means that you are oriented properly for landing. A down arrow indicates that you should adjust your angle of attack by pitching your nose down, while an up arrow tells you to pull your nose up. For more information on angle of attack, click on the angle of attack gauge. The speed brake lamp is lit when your speed brake has been extended, causing you to lose speed quickly. The speed brake is opened and closed by pressing the B key. The landing gear lamp is lit when your landing gear is down and appears in conjunction with the approach indexer. The landing gear may be raised or lowered by pressing the G key. The angle of attack gauge displays your current angle of attack, which is defined as the difference between an aircraft's flight path and the chord line of its wing. In practical terms, having a high angle of attack means that you have high maneuverability. The external tank jettison switch drops your external fuel tanks, making your Tomcat faster and more maneuverable. You can activate this switch by pressing Shift-J. External fuel tanks jettisoned. The Sidewinder lock lamp illuminates when your Sidewinder has acquired a target. Using this lamp, you can tell if your Sidewinder has locked onto an enemy plane, even if your radar has been turned off. The collision lamp is illuminated by your radar intercept officer to indicate that you are in collision with a bogey. When this lamp is lit, your backseater is indicating that you are on the correct course for interception. Many radar intercept officers prefer to let the pilot pick an interception course and so do not utilize this lamp. The master arm lamp is lit when the master arm switch is on, enabling your weapons to fire. The master arm switch arms your weapons. You can toggle this switch by pressing the M key. When your weapons are armed, the master arm lamp is lit. Master arm off. The weapon stores display shows the number and location of missiles remaining on each side of the aircraft. A black box means that the weapon at that station has been fired, while a gray box indicates an unused missile. The checkered box indicates what weapon is selected to be fired next. The master caution lamp illuminates when you have taken damage.
We're hit!
To check the extent of the damage, press the right arrow key on your numeric keypad. The F-14 is designed with movable wings that automatically take advantage of various flight conditions. The position of the wings is called the wing sweep and is displayed by the wing sweep indicator. As you accelerate, the wings automatically sweep back, so you are configured for high-speed linear flight. When you need more lift and maneuverability for tight turns, dogfights, and landings, the wings sweep forward as you slow down. By looking at an F-14's wing configuration, you can gauge the relative speed of the aircraft. The G-force indicator displays the amount of stress you are subjecting the aircraft to as you maneuver. This stress is expressed in multiples of the normal force of gravity. A G-force indicator that reads 6 means that you are putting stress equal to 6 times the normal force of gravity on yourself and the plane. Positive G's occur when you pull back on the stick, while negative G's occur when the stick is pushed forward. When a pilot pulls high positive G's as the result of a tight turn or steep climb, blood is forced to the feet, depriving the brain of oxygen. If a G count is sustained above 8 Gs, you may black out until the stress is relieved. When negative forces of -3 or greater occur, excess blood is forced into the brain and eyes. This condition is called redout. The Tactical Electronic Warfare System, or TEWS, alerts you to any radar sources attempting to track your aircraft, whether on the ground or in the air. Objects appearing at the top of your TEWS are in front of you. Objects appearing at the bottom are behind you. If an enemy is searching for you, a beep sounds whenever their radar passes over you, and a section of the TEWS lights up to indicate the direction of the radar. When a radar has locked onto you, a ground-based radar source appears as a square icon in the TEWS display, while a diamond icon indicates that a hostile plane is painting your aircraft. Either way, a launch is imminent. Your radar intercept officer warns you when an enemy missile has left the rail, and you also hear an audio alert from the TEWS. After launch, a radar-guided missile appears as a small square in the TEWS. Heat-seeking missiles do not appear on the display because they do not rely on radar tracking. In addition to displaying threat information, the TEWS can jam a hostile radar. Pressing the J key turns the jammer on. Once active, the jammer automatically counters radar emissions directed at your plane. The word jammer flashes when automatic jamming is engaged. At this point, you are harder to lock onto, but very easy to detect, because your jammer creates a lot of radar noise. If stealth is more important to you than missile avoidance, press the J key again to turn off the electronic countermeasures. The artificial horizon displays your aircraft's pitch and roll. Pitch is the vertical orientation of your aircraft, while roll is the horizontal orientation. The heading indicator is a magnetic heading compass and can act as a backup if the compass on the heads-up display is damaged. The right engine fire lamp illuminates when your starboard engine has been damaged and is on fire. The left engine fire lamp illuminates when your portside engine has been damaged and is on fire. The airspeed indicator displays your current speed in knots indicated airspeed, or KIAS. This measurement is distinct from true airspeed, or TAS, which is affected by air density and temperature. At higher altitudes, the air becomes less dense, reducing drag on your aircraft. As a result of this reduced drag, your TAS increases as you climb, even as you maintain constant KIAS. TAS is shown on your horizontal situation display. The altimeter measures your above sea level altitude in hundreds and thousands of feet. Above sea level altitude is not necessarily the same as the height of the aircraft above the ground. Above sea level altitude is a constant, while above ground level altitude changes depending on the elevation of the ground beneath you. If you are flying over a mountain, there is a significant difference between sea and ground level readings. Above ground level altitude is measured by the radar altimeter. The radar altimeter uses the terrain-following radar to display above ground level altitude. This figure is the amount of distance between you and the ground, and should not be confused with above sea level altitude. If you are flying over a mountain, there is a significant difference between sea and ground level readings. Above sea level altitude is measured by the altimeter. The vertical velocity indicator displays your rate of ascent or descent, measured in thousands of feet per minute. The vertical display indicator, or VDI, is a backup system for the heads-up display. Pressing the V key toggles between the vertical display indicator and the television camera system. To learn about the VDI in combat mode, press the backspace key to lock onto a target. You are now in combat mode. Your vertical display indicator shows the locked enemy represented by the steering T. Press the 1, 2, 3, or 4 key to select a weapon system. Press the K key to break your lock on the enemy aircraft. You have just broken lock on an enemy aircraft. Navigational information is now displayed on the heads-up display. To reacquire the target, press the backspace key. Combat mode selected. You are now looking down from the main cockpit view. This view allows access to fuel and engine information, as well as to the horizontal situation display. The RPM gauge displays the revolutions per minute of your engines. The engine temperature gauge shows your engine temperature. The fuel flow gauge indicates your rate of fuel flow. The right engine fuel display shows the amount of fuel available to the right engine. The left engine fuel display shows the amount of fuel available to the left engine. The total fuel display shows the total amount of fuel on board your aircraft in pounds. The bingo fuel indicator displays the minimum amount of fuel necessary to return to your carrier in pounds. When the amount of fuel in the total fuel display equals the amount shown in the bingo fuel display, you should head for home. The graphical fuel gauge is a graphical representation of the total amount of fuel on board your aircraft. A numerical representation of this gauge is located above. The horizontal situation display, or HSD, shows navigational information. Around the outside of the HSD is a compass. The compass heading indicated by the heading symbol is your direction of flight. The waypoint indicator displays the direction of the selected waypoint. In the center of the HSD are 3 lines of text. The first line displays the distance to the selected waypoint. The middle line displays your true airspeed, or TAS. This measurement is distinct from knots-indicated airspeed, or KIAS. TAS is affected by air density and temperature. At higher altitudes, the air becomes less dense, reducing drag on your aircraft. As a result of this reduced drag, your TAS increases as you climb, even as you maintain constant KIAS. KIAS is shown on the third line of the HSD as a Mach number. Mach numbers express velocity in relation to the speed of sound. An HSD that reads Mach 2 means that the aircraft is traveling at twice the speed of sound. The HSD may also be used as a target information display repeater. Shift R toggles between the 2 displays. Target information display selected. The Tactical Information Display, or TID, shows you what is going on around your aircraft. Enemy and neutral objects appear as red icons, while friendly craft are blue. The TID displays icons representing fighters, bombers, ships, ground-based radars, missiles, and waypoints. A white square around an aircraft means that you have locked on to that target. The range can be set in increments between 10 and 200 nautical miles. Range scaling is controlled by the Z and X keys. The Z key magnifies the display, while the X key unzooms the display. Shift R toggles between the target information display and the horizontal situation display. The landing gear lever raises and lowers the landing gear. To raise or lower the gear, press the G key. The throttle is used to change your speed. Pressing the minus key lowers your speed, and pressing the equal key increases your speed. Pressing Shift equal sets your throttle at 100%, a setting known as full military power. When you have been hit by missiles or by gunfire, any damage taken will be shown on your Master Caution Advisory panel. A lit display indicates a damaged system. Click on any lamp to learn more about damage to these systems. If your nav system has been knocked out, you cannot use waypoint information to navigate. When your AUG-15 fire control system has been hit, you cannot fire any weapons. Damage to your AUG-9 radar means that you cannot lock up targets or fire radar-guided missiles. Sidewinders may still be used, since they are heat seekers and are not dependent on a radar lock. If your data link has been knocked out, your RIO will not receive radar information from external sources, such as the E-2C Hawkeye Airborne Early Warning Aircraft. The F-14 is designed with movable wings that automatically take advantage of various flight conditions. The position of the wings is called the wing sweep. When the wing sweep damage indicator is lit, it means that your wings have become jammed in their current position. When your right engine light is illuminated, it means that you have lost your right engine. You can still fly on just one engine, but if two get knocked out, it's time to eject by pressing Shift-E. When the fuel low lamps are lit, it means that you are close to bingo fuel. Bingo fuel is the amount of fuel necessary to return to the carrier. When this lamp is lit, you should think about heading for home. When your left engine light is illuminated, it means that you have lost your left engine. You can still fly on just one engine, but if two get knocked out, it's time to eject by pressing Shift-E. Loss of hydraulic pressure makes the plane difficult to fly. Damage to your brakes prevents you from using your speed brake. The bingo fuel lamp indicates that you have just enough fuel to make it back to the carrier. When this light is on, you should set your throttle to a fuel-efficient 70% and head for home. Damage to your landing gear or hook makes it impossible to land. The arrestor hook lever lowers the arrestor hook for landings. To raise or lower the arrestor hook, press the H key. The backseat view shows the radar systems operated by the Radar Intercept Officer, or RIO. The radar indicator light is illuminated when your radar is on. The radar may be turned off and on by pressing the R key. The range that the detailed data display is set to is shown by the range scaling indicator lamps. The range may be set in increments between 5 and 200 nautical miles. Range scaling is controlled by the Z and X keys. The Z key magnifies the display, while the X key reduces the display. Changing the radar scale has no effect in standard mode. The Detailed Data Display, or DDD, is your radar screen. The blips on the radar screen represent aircraft that the radar has detected. The closer the blips are to the bottom of the screen, the closer they are to you. Initially, the radar beam appears on the display as a green line that sweeps the sky. At this point, the DDD is in search mode. Once you have locked up one of the blips, the radar beam focuses on that blip, and the DDD switches to track mode. If you want to lock onto a target or focus on a different target, press the backspace key. The range may be set in increments between 5 and 200 nautical miles. Range scaling is controlled by the Z and X keys. The Z key magnifies the display, while the X key reduces the display. Changing the radar scale has no effect in standard mode. The Track Search Mode display indicates what mode your radar systems are currently set to. Search mode is used when you are scanning the sky and have not designated a target. The radar goes into track mode when you have locked onto an aircraft. The range that the tactical information display is set to is shown by the number in the range scaling display. The range can be set in increments between 10 and 200 nautical miles. Range scaling is controlled by the Z and X keys. The Z key magnifies the display, while the X key unzooms the display. The Tactical Information Display, or TID, shows you what is going on around your aircraft. Enemy and neutral objects appear as red icons, while friendly craft are blue. The TID displays icons representing fighters, bombers, ships, ground-based radars, missiles, and waypoints. A white square around an aircraft means that you have locked on to that target. The range can be set in increments between 10 and 200 nautical miles. Range scaling is controlled by the Z and X keys. The Z key magnifies the display, while the X key unzooms the display.
During a typical air operation, the rescue helicopter is the first to leave the deck and hover in standby status near the ship. Tankers would take up their positions overhead to be available for airborne refueling demands, day or night. In a mission requiring fully integrated support, the E-2C Hawkeye, with its all-seeing radar rotodome, would be up and on station to keep a far-ranging eye on any air or surface threat hundreds of miles away from the battle group, and using voice or silent data link transmissions, vector the fleet's fighters to intercept and neutralize any danger. The variable swept-wing F-14 Tomcat fighter interceptor, designed for all-weather fleet, air defense, and air superiority, would follow. It can defeat enemy aircraft from sea level to an altitude of over 80,000 feet, from dogfight range to more than 700 nautical miles away. One of its prime missions is to destroy enemy bombers before they get close enough to launch their cruise missiles. The A-6E Intruder is the Air Wing's low-level, all-weather, long-range, day and night attack bomber. With a crew of 2, a pilot and BN, or bombardier navigator, and able to carry missiles and rockets, it would be launched to deliver 5 2,000-pound general-purpose bombs or up to 28 500-pound bombs on targets hidden by darkness or weather. Aside from supporting strike aircraft with its electronic countermeasure systems, the EA-6B Prowler would be called upon to play a key role in defending the fleet. The EA-6B uses its electronic capabilities to protect the carrier battle group against long-range bombers, radar-homing anti-ship missiles, and is able to clear the way for Navy and Marine strike aircraft to disorient enemy air defense systems by jamming or destroying them with the HARM missile. The A-7 Corsair is the Air Wing's light attack strike day bomber and close air support aircraft. It can carry air-to-air and air-to-ground missiles, general-purpose bombs, and is outfitted with a 20mm cannon. It is in the process of being replaced by the multi-mission FA-18 Hornet Naval Strike Fighter, now joining carrier air wings, a high-performance, multi-mission, single-piloted aircraft. A balance of high aerodynamic performance, digital avionics, and high reliability and maintainability make it an effective replacement for the F-4 Phantom and the A-7 Corsair. It is capable of conducting fighter missions beyond 400 nautical miles. The S-3 Viking has a crew of 4 and can attack submarines at long ranges under all weather conditions. The S-3 can also lay mines, attack ships over the horizon with its Harpoon missile, and refuel other air-wing aircraft using a buddy store. It carries 60 sonobuoys and can range 1,000 miles for more than 2 hours without refueling. The flight deck can be highly dangerous. Because of the high noise level on the flight deck, communication is coordinated by a series of unmistakable hand signals. The daytime launch sequence, for example, can be understood through these very firm commands. Controllers in the carrier's air traffic control center will keep track of the flights that have been launched, those that are due to leave, planes that need mid-air refueling, and the ones scheduled to return. During landings, the flight deck officer will signal clear or foul deck, depending upon the safe or unsafe condition of the deck to accept inbound aircraft. In this case, the airplane has taxied off and the deck is clear, as indicated by the green light at the end of the runway. Once safely aboard, the aircraft rolls back slightly, dropping the cable, and the pilot is directed to raise the hook. A crewman called the hook runner will then signal that the wire is clear and that it is safe to retract it. The pilot is directed to taxi clear of the landing area, and the deck is prepared for the next landing. The same basic signals are used during night operations, but with lighted wands, by men who can be identified by the reflective designation on their helmets. This rapid but well-organized sequence of activities requires detailed training and many closely monitored rehearsals. The new crew members learn their jobs by the numbers, learning when, where, and how to move in this dangerous environment, here on the flight deck.
People on the flight deck are all color-coded by their jerseys. And the reason for that is quick recognition. We've got probably 5 or 6 different color shirts that we put people in. For example, I wear a yellow shirt, which is kind of traditional for the air boss in the air department. But also the yellow shirts generally designate directors. These people are the ones who are more qualified. They are the ones who physically tell the pilots how to maneuver their airplanes as they're taxiing around the deck. We also have the blue shirts, who are my handlers. Those are generally my younger fellows, and they are primarily there to tie down the airplanes, to chain them down. I've got purple shirts, who are my aviation fuels people. I've got white shirts, who are generally safety type individuals, monitoring safety all around the deck. Also my corpsmen, my medical people are in white. The aircraft troubleshooters, who are members of the squadrons, are in white. So that if an air crew calls and says, I need to see a troubleshooter, I know when one has arrived on the scene, and that way I know the airplane's getting the help he needs. We have green shirts, and those are all my catapult and arresting people. Resting gear folks are all in green shirts, and as are most of the squadron technicians. But the bottom line reason for all that is so that we can quickly identify and designate who should be where.
The men in the fire-protective metal suits are the carrier's on-deck crash crews, the firefighters, the rescuers. The people in red move and service the bombs and missiles and other armaments. Those wearing brown jerseys and frequently seen on the ladders leading to the cockpits are the plane captains.
Well, we have 4 wires on the aft portion of the ship of our arresting gear wires. Any one of them is fully as capable as the rest to stop an airplane. But the further aft that you go, the number 1 wire is the furthest aft that we have. For an airplane to catch that means that he is lower than he should be. And we would like to provide the airplane, or have him provide himself, the maximum clearance that he can over the back end of the ship before he lands and still catch a wire. So the ideal target wire, the one that he's trying to hit, is the 3-wire. And so we have varying distances, but essentially we've got about 40 feet between the wires, between each wire. So he's got a very small landing area that he's shooting for.
The pilot approaching the deck has about a 200-foot safe area to land in, down the middle of the deck. And if it's an F-14 with a 64-foot wingspread, he will have very little clearance between parked aircraft on either side of the deck while traveling at about 135 knots. It's also important to remember that while he's moving, the ship is moving forward and rolling, and the deck may be pitching up or down. It takes intense concentration and rapid eye-hand coordination. And after a tough combat mission, fatigue can become a factor.
Have the LSOs on the
Lieutenant Commander Gary Tritt.
It takes an extreme amount of concentration on the pilot. If all your systems in the aircraft are working and the ship is giving you information, automatic carrier landing system, or the ILS is up, then the pilot is at a point where he has to then put all the concentration towards that effort and to fly the aircraft down to a good start on the ball, so that as you come in for the landing from a half a mile to 3/4 in, you have the parameters set up and you're able to fly the ball all the way down without gross deviations. The biggest problem being is that if you're tired or if you have an aircraft problem and the variables with the ship itself, then you rely a lot also on the LSOs and on your reel to be able to give you instant feedback on what you're doing.
We have a 5th wire, if you will, that we also put up a large net associated with that. It's called a barricade. That is an emergency-only usage piece of equipment that is there should, for example, an airplane's hook break. His arresting gear hook, if it breaks while he launches or in the air or he can't get it down, he has no other way to stop his airplane. We can then raise this barricade, which is a large 20-foot high net that goes across the landing area, and he can fly into it.
Striving to reduce the risks and improve the safety margins for pilot control and flight deck operations, new technologies are continually being developed. Together with advanced aircraft navigational aids, there are sophisticated guidance and control systems that range from automatic throttle, which maintains the proper approach angle of attack of the aircraft, to the FA-18's fully automatic hands-off recovery of aircraft, directed by interactive radar-controlled shipboard guidance. The basic idea is to roll into the groove or to line up correctly for the approach about 3/4 of a mile out, and to remain on the glide slope by keeping the light on the deck called the ball centered within strict parameters. This optical glide path system consists of a gyroscopically stabilized array of Fresnel lenses projecting narrow beams of light. The pilot flies the desired glide path by keeping the yellow ball level with the green reference lights. He also has to keep his aircraft lined up with the center of the runway while maintaining the precise angle of attack, assuring the correct airspeed. If he is above the desired glide slope, he will see the ball above the green lights and must correct to lower his glide path. If he's low, he sees the ball below the green lights and corrects to increase his glide slope. If he is in the final stages of his approach and is so low that he sees the red ball on the bottom of the display, the LSO may wave off the aircraft and instruct the pilot to go around and try again. There are only 12 seconds from when the pilot enters the groove to touchdown. This is all the time there is for the LSO to decide if a wave-off is necessary. When necessary, to avoid electronic detection and ensure carrier security, radio silence or zip-lip is maintained. The one-way commands are handled with lights. Once the pilot rolls wings level into the groove, he'll receive a quick flash of the lights known as the cut lights, a row of green lights atop the ball, which will tell him that he's next in line to land. The cut lights are also operated by the LSO with a handheld pickle switch. Should the inbound pilot need to add power, the cut lights will be held an extra second or two, indicating the need for additional power. In bad weather or at night, sophisticated equipment coupled with a heads-up display allows the LSO team to see a presentation of the approaching aircraft before it breaks into the clear. The plat screen, which displays an image of the approach from the centerline perspective, will reveal whether the plane is drifting right or left just before touchdown. Stored on tape, this information is available to be played back to the pilots during their debriefs. Full power is always applied on landing, just in case all the wires are missed and the aircraft must pull up and go around, which is referred to as a bolter. This will allow the pilot to come back and make a landing instead of dumping himself, his crew, and a $30 million airplane into the sea. It is agreed by those who know that night landings, or night traps as they're also called, are extremely difficult because of the loss of visual references. There's no horizon and you can't see the deck. And yet, as the air boss puts it, everyone seems to get quite good at it. But according to one veteran pilot, everybody has a night in the barrel.
Vertigo in flying at night is a very prominent problem. A pilot has to rely on his instincts and his training to fly the aircraft by instruments. Believe what you see and not what you feel. The biggest problem that will occur is that guys will then begin to they feel that they're in a left-hand turn, they don't believe the instrumentation that they see in front of them, and they may try to correct. Henceforth, they get themselves in a lot of trouble.
And then there is the weather. Heavy winds and rough seas, sleet, snow, ice, and men in airplanes on a slippery deck.
He calls you at 3/4
Lieutenant
of a
Mike
mile where
Bouvier.
you should break out, and he say, okay, you're at 3/4 of a mile, call the ball, which is a key to transition to a visual scan, and the LSOs at that point pick you up visually and start talking to you. Well, at 3/4 of a mile, he said, call the ball. I looked out, and there wasn't no ball because, in fact, I was still in the clouds. So I waited, and I'm still flying. This is about the last 15 to 20 seconds of flight. I'm waiting a number of seconds and still flying the needles down to the minimum altitude, and I still don't see anything. Finally, about the time I'm going to add power and take it around, the LSOs say paddles contact, which means they see me, even though I don't see the ship. They see my landing light. They say paddles contact, little right for lineup, little power back on. So they're giving me some call before I can see the ship. My heart's going at about 400 beats a minute, of course, at this point. And about 3, 4, 5 seconds later, I finally start to see something. I break out, which means I get clear of the clouds and see an outline of the ship, pick up the meatball, which is my saving grace there, and I make a last-minute play for the deck. I can't see any of the lineup because the snow's falling on the deck and melting and creating like a shimmering effect to where the landing area is not illuminated. But I see a couple airplanes on the left and a line of airplanes on the right and kind of go, well, this is about right. I get it aboard, catch a 4-wire, but that was probably the toughest landing I ever had to make.
A mission will begin with air wing briefings in each squadron's ready room 2 hours before the launch. And then it all comes together. The purple shirts, or grapes as they're known, will have completed refueling. Ordnance teams will deliver, attach, and arm the weapons to be taken along. Plane captains and the men in blue shirts will have begun preparing the mission aircraft. Will give their airplanes a final once-over. The air crews strap in. The rescue helo is the first to take off. It will remain airborne nearby. The flight deck crew goes to work. The takeoff weight of the airplane heading for the catapult is shown to the pilot and to the CAT officer for corroboration. The CAT pressure is set to correspond to the weight demand. Hand signals move the launch forward. Aircraft are tensioned on the catapults by engaging the launch bar into the catapult shuttle, which, when the correct steam pressure is reached, will snap off the retaining link and drive the aircraft forward at launch speed. The speed of the launching sequence becomes important. An airplane is launched within every 90 seconds off the same catapult. In other words, shoot one, load it up, and shoot another. That would be 26 airplanes in 20 minutes, using just 2 of the 4 catapults. Aircraft are launched and recovered in this alternating cycle for 12 to 15 hours a day. As soon as this group is launched, the deck is immediately prepared to recover the return of an earlier mission. The recovery process. Once an airplane rolls into the groove and checks in with the LSO, the controlling LSO will tell the pilot to call the ball.
606, let's call the ball.
When the pilot sees it, he reports his name and fuel weight. The arresting wire tension is set, and another trap. They do this every 45 seconds, and they make it look easy. When not deployed overseas or on a cruise, the Air Wing is shore-based at naval air stations around the United States. Before they go to sea, pilots, naval flight officers, enlisted air crewmen, and all support people go through intensive training cycles ashore, where the skills that make an air wing work as an integrated unit are taught. Simulators for each aircraft make it possible for air crews to become proficient with everything from cockpit procedures to nighttime carrier landings to sophisticated combat maneuvers conducted in incredibly realistic environments. One location for actual practice is at Falcon Naval Air Station in Nevada, where individual squadrons come together as an air wing to learn to fight as a team. The closest to the real thing is practiced against squadrons of different type aircraft, simulating enemy fighters, flying enemy tactics. Intercepts and strikes coordinated with electronic jamming and deception measures are then conducted on ranges against ground targets defended by simulated SAM missiles and ground missile sites. The results are then critiqued with the help of the Cubic Corporation's real-time visual display of who made it and who didn't. Strike Warfare Center School. 3 weeks of flying around the clock for the carrier air wing. Once integrated training at Falcon has been completed, and before overseas deployment can take place, the air wing will have to demonstrate its operational capabilities by taking a final exam, and several weeks of demonstrating operational readiness at sea. But the true test of whether the objective has been met will be an ongoing one, resting on the officers and men who will handle and fly these airplanes at sea.
The story of fighters is the story of warriors whose skill and guts have inspired generations of pilots, whose exploits win wars, whose fighting experience pushed aircraft designers to create the technology base for world aviation. The pattern persists. Technological advances improve the performance of fighter aircraft. New tactics emerge and are put to the test in the thick of air combat. It is the dogfight that will determine whether specific new advances work or can be defeated. Sopwiths battling Fokkers over the trenches of France. Half a century later, F-4 Phantoms facing MiG-17s and MiG-21s in Vietnam. Each war brings with it a new mission for the fighter. But the objective has remained constant from World War I through Vietnam, to gain air superiority. As you see the history of air-to-air combat unfold, remember the immortal words of World War II German ace Adolf Galland, words that have become a benchmark for fighter squadrons worldwide, emblazoned on plaques, displayed in ready rooms, engraved in the hearts and minds of fighter pilots. Only the spirit of attack, born in a brave heart, will bring success to any fighter aircraft, no matter how highly developed it may be. The way the fighter pilot and his aircraft evolved between World War I and the Vietnam conflict seems, in hindsight, easy to describe in the context of war. But as the 20th century ends, air warfare is changing yet again. Now, in the split-second world of Mach 2 closing speeds and higher, pilots can't wait for the merge to attack. They have radars and weapons that make a kill more certain, and in any quadrant, including head-on. Their workloads are so intense that without the technology of a modern cockpit, they could not fly or fight. For a quarter century, the Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird has been the fastest, highest-flying airplane in the world. Its mission, to provide the foreknowledge that will prevent war from starting, or that will bring an outbreak of fighting to a swift, successful conclusion. Months of preparation and weeks of specific planning were coming to a climax in the early hours of January 17, 1991. A powerful force of allied countries, led by the United States, was about to launch the attack on Iraq and Iraqi troops that had taken neighboring Kuwait. A war was about to begin, a war unlike any in history, a war where modern technology would catch up with military theory. The first war where air power almost exclusively would decide the outcome. Soviet Sukhoi 27 fighter interceptor. NATO codename Flanker. U.S. Air Force F-16 Falcon fighter. U.S. Navy F-14 Tomcat fighter interceptor. U.S. Navy F-A-18 Hornet fighter. U.S. Air Force F-15 Eagle fighter. Soviet MiG-29 fighter. NATO codename Falcon. These 6 airplanes are the ones intended to rule the skies, the top-of-the-line fighters from the world's 2 major air powers. They are lethal fighting machines with awesome firepower and weapon systems. In this program, you'll see the spectacle, flying drama, and hardware that makes air shows so popular and gave so many people insight into the future flying battlefield of the Gulf War.
An aircraft carrier. In this case, a supercarrier on one of the world's 7 seas, on deployment with more than 5,000 officers and men for more than half a year. A self-sufficient, fast-moving, floating airbase, remarkable for that. And because, as one commander put it, it's like steering Manhattan Island around from the top of the Empire State Building. What is more remarkable is the skill that goes into making it do what it does, despite being as small as it is. A veteran pilot described the flight deck as O'Hare and Washington National Airports at peak hours, squeezed into a few basketball courts. A tight and dangerous environment in which inches or inattention can mean catastrophe. But, he added, think of it also as the most formidable floating weapons system ever devised.
Gypsy 207, contact 175, 72 miles. Looks like a flight of 2, Angels 10. Okay, he's got a missile off. Good hit on one. I've got the other one. Select box 2, select box 2. That's box 2. Get it, lock him up. Lock him up. Man, shoot him, box 2. I can't, I don't have a phone. Roger that. Gypsies are blowing north. Let's go down low, on the deck. Unload, 500 knots. Let's get out of here. Gypsy 207, contact 175, 72 miles. Looks like a flight of 2, Angels 10.
Close out, curves showing 78 miles.
Throttle back just a little bit here.
James closeout shows 25 mile separation. Turn it down.
Contacts appear to be heading 315 now, speed 430, angels approximately 8,000.
Roger, Ace, take it north.
Yes, Roger. We have to make a quick loop here.
Starboard, I'm going to give you a collision here. Okay, come starboard about 40. 207, 61 miles now, bearing 180, angels 8, heading 330. Steady up.
Alpha Bravo is closed out.
Come back port, 20 degrees here. He's drinking now, at us. Okay, bogies appear to be coming, jinking to the right now, heading north. Speed 430, angels 5,000 now in the descent. Okay, let's take her down now. We're going down.
Close out, warning yellow, weapons hold. I repeat, warning yellow, weapons hold. Alpha Bravo out. Roger,
Okay.
Gypsies, pass up Bravo directs, warning yellow, weapons hold.
35 miles here.
Roger that. Bogies have jinked back into me now for the third time. Nose is on at 35 miles. Angel 7.
Alpha Bravo closed out, you copy?
Okay, I'm taking another offset, starboard 210.
This guy got locked up, Leos, is 30 miles and he's at 13,000 feet, a trailer.
Roger that. Level off here. Okay, bogies jinked back into me for the fourth time. I'm coming back starboard. Come back port now. Port, 27 miles. Bogies at 7,000 feet.
45.
Watch out, bogies 13550, angels 16. Heading 340.
Okay.
Roger, same bogies.
You're in collision now. Steering.
Okay, bogies have jinked back at me again for the fifth time. They're on my nose now. Inside of 20 miles. Master arm on, master arm on.
See, good light.
Good light.
Okay, centering up the T. Bogey has jinked back into me again. 16 miles, center the dot.
Say your angels.
I'm at Angels 5, nose up.
Oh, his angels.
Oh, wait a minute.
Angels are at 9.
Alpha Bravo from 207.
13 miles. Fox 1, Fox 1.
Oh, Jesus.
Beacon right.
Roger that. 10 miles, he's back on my nose. Fox 1 again.
Watching them up.
6 miles, 6 miles.
Tally 2, tally 2. Turning into me.
Roger that. 5 miles. 4 miles.
Okay, he's got a missile off.
Breaking right.
Good hit on one.
Roger that. Good kill, good kill.
I've got the other one. Select Fox 2. Select Fox 2. I got Fox 2.
Coming hard, stop.
So fucking shoot him. I haven't got a cone.
Got the second one.
I got the second one on the nose right now.
Hey, I'm high cover on you.
Get a Fox. Lock him up. Lock him up. Man, shoot him, Fox 2. I can't. I don't have a fucking cone. So what? Good kill, good kill.
Hey, good kill. Pilot ejected. Pilot ejected out of the second one.
Okay, Meister, let's head north. Head north.
Okay, port side high. I'm coming down hard.
Roger.
Roger that. Gypsies are going north. Let's go down low on the deck. Unload 500 knots. Let's get out of here.
Hey, 2 good shoots. We're showing 2 good shoots in the air here from Munster.
Roger that. I see the
I got the splash. One splash.
one splash.
Taking it down to 3,000 here, Munster.
The splash 160 at 96.
go. Once they're down to 3,000, let's get out of here.